Hello and welcome to another episode of Thoughts Per Episode, House of a Dragon edition. Today's episode continued the major themes of the entire season, I think, of the balance between what you want to do and what you have to do, or the balance between desire and politics, I guess. We've seen in the last few episodes leading up to this, or maybe primarily the last episode, that Rhaenyra doesn't want to have to marry, and obviously Viserys is like, well, you gotta, but you can marry who you want. This episode shows that even that didn't go too well with her tour of Westeros and her many suitors, none of them appealing to her. And yeah, I don't blame you, love. I wouldn't like to be shopped around for a husband either. But what this episode did is it took all of those emotions and added the corrupting influence of one Daemon Targaryen. I really didn't want Daemon and Rhaenyra to, get down and dirty with it, and they almost did. They might as well have. What I think is fucking fascinating about it, though, is that even though it's made clear to us that Daemon Targaryen does want to screw his niece, I feel like he does this, like, he doesn't actually, but, like, he goes through the motions of making everyone believe he has, right up to the point where he even could have, purely for political purposes. He wants the rumours to spread about him and Rhaenyra. As we see later in the episode, he orchestrated this entire thing to try and get Viserys to wed him to Rhaenyra because he knew there was no way Viserys would. So he was hoping, if he was already seen to have quote-unquote spoiled her, oh god, I love this fucking era of Thrones, maybe he would just go, fine, fuck it, you might as well seal the deal with a marriage. The thing is, as much as he is attracted to Rhaenyra and wants to marry Rhaenyra for his own personal reasons, I think the real reason he wants to marry Rhaenyra is for political reasons. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra goes, well fine, if my uncle isn't gonna bonk me, he's taught me that it's actually fun for women to do some bonking, so I'm gonna go and bonk my really hot knight, Kristen Cole. Cole? Was it Kristen Cole? You know who I mean. And good on her, but I mean also not good on Kristen because he did a really good job in that scene of portraying, mostly through facial expressions and body language, how while he was quite obviously attracted to Rhaenyra, he didn't want to be used in this way. To the point where at one point while she's undressing him, he looks longingly back to his post. And he really does a good job of showing that he doesn't exactly get seduced by her as much as he feels like he needs to fulfill the wishes of his princess and or worries about the ramifications of rejecting her. There's also the visual representation of her quite literally taking off his armor and deknighting him in a weird way. It's some really interesting power dynamics going on here, and this might be the first time in the whole series where I haven't actually liked Rhaenyra, because she is actually acting as princessy, crowny people do, and treating the people who are serving her loyally as subjects to be toyed with, much in the same way, interestingly, that Daemon treats his, I don't think she's really with him anymore, but his, lady. Miss Saria, you know who I mean. I do also want to spare a thought for Alicent Hightower, because the third sex scene of the episode, not chronologically, but in terms of what I'm talking about, shows that she really is just fucking there to do her duty, and it sucks for her and I hate it. This episode also shows that while Alicent has pretty much been trained in the art of politics by her father, she does actually fall prey to a lie from Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra lies to her about whether she, did the dirty. Even though she never actually did end up bonking her uncle, she did completely lie about, the possibility being there and her wanting to, and obviously she lied to everyone by way of admittance about Kristen Cole, which is good that she did, otherwise Kristen Cole would probably be hanged. I do like though how after the argument between Viserys and Rhaenyra, Viserys quietly let Rhaenyra know that he didn't believe her lies because he sent her the old make the baby go away tonic. But yeah, this episode did a really good job of continuing to show us the completely different expectations set upon women in this world versus men. If it was a dude going around and bonking all these people, you wouldn't think twice about it. Okay, maybe the incest part you would, but the whole Kristen Cole thing, it's like, while it's not good for Kristen Cole, you're like, yeah, Rhaenyra, you go get that. But if it was ever found out what happened between the two of them, it's Kristen Cole who would be hanged, and Rhaenyra would be disinherited, and all these horrible things. whereas the other way around, nobody would blink an eye. Fucking hypocrites. Daemon Targaryen has been sent back to the Vale, and I have to wonder how many more times is he going to be able to claw his way back into court, do a dirty, and then get sent away again. We also see on Viserys that he's got more scars and cuts and bruises over the rest of his entire body. Alicent offers to wash him. He says, "Thank you, you have a much defter hand," and you see lots of calluses forming on him. Also, it's worth noting that Viserys is finally Mr. Slowpoke, grown wise to the fact that Otto Hightower sent Alicent to him when he was in mourning as a political maneuver. I did like how when Viserys gave his whole speech about basically laying bare all of the manipulations Otto's made as his time as Hand, when he takes the hand badge off of Otto, Otto looks like he's just been stabbed. One also has to wonder if this is some sort of 5D chess move on Daemon Targaryen's part to get rid of Otto Hightower, because of course those two bloody hate each other. I kind of skipped over the whole conversation between Rhaenyra and Viserys, thank you. But I do just want to bring it up again to mention how every single scene they are in together, they really sell the dynamic of both father and daughter, and also king and princess, and like heir apparent and all that kind of thing. They have arguments about how the realm is meant to be ruled. They have arguments about the different gender roles and what's expected, and while it may or may not be fair, what you should and should not do, what kind of expectations you're supposed to be living up to, what responsibilities you have in this position. And once again, Viserys reminds her about the whole Song of Ice and Fire prophecy. The words "Prince who was promised" are actually uttered in the fucking show for, I believe, the first time ever, which is kind of exciting, but also it feels like kind of irrelevant now. It feels like they're trying to hype up Game of Thrones, even though Game of Thrones is over. But while at first I was a little bit like, oh my god, I get it, we know already, we get that you want to do the whole Song of Ice and Fire thing in this show. I again do appreciate the idea that the prophecy was literally engraved into the dagger and can only be seen in firelight and has never been noticed in the main show. Kind of cool, but also kind of retcon. But it is a good way of making Viserys go like, hey, Rhaenyra, you have a duty and you're kind of shirking it right now. And I always talk about how competent Rhaenyra is. I actually think in this episode she does waver a little bit, but again, there's a whole dynamic, isn't there, of, her actually trying to escape the confines of her gender and her role as princess too. It's not fair to be born into the burden of this responsibility, is it? Maybe royal families should be abolished. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Thoughts Per Episode House of a Dragon edition. Leave a comment if there's anything I missed that you want to talk about. Leave a like if you liked the video, and hopefully you will be back next week as we discuss this show even more.